Alright friends, welcome here to our backyard. This episode is going to be a little bit different. Today we're going to be talking about our awning and the troubles we've been having with it. But even if you're not having troubles with your own awning, this is a good episode for you because it might help you avoid some of the troubles that we've been facing. Stick around because you might learn something today. Before we get into that, I want to show you a short intro. It's basically a highlight reel of our recent RV travels. And hopefully that'll inspire you to endure the headaches of problems like this with your RV because they're all full of trouble. It doesn't matter which one you've got, but we try to focus on where our RV takes us. And that's what this intro is about. We'll sit down and watch that real quick, and in 30 seconds, we'll talk about the awning.
See it?
And we're back. So, behind me you can see the RV. Recently, the last couple trips, Summersville and Promised Land, we've been struggling with the awning. Sometimes it wanted to go out, but it wouldn't come back in. Then it wanted to go in, but it wouldn't come out. And sometimes it was just stuck where it was and wouldn't go either way. Our awning is a Dometic 9200. Of course, this sort of troubleshooting applies to anything. It's not even just awnings. Right in here, there's a connection. So that was the first thing I checked. And the connection actually was a little loose. We discovered that at Summersville, but tightened it up, and that didn't solve the problem. I have now since put dielectric grease on it. That didn't solve the problem. Friends, if you don't have one of these, it's a good thing to have and to know how to use with RVs because you could be having all kinds of trouble. So I put it on the 20 volt DC setting, which is for batteries. With the switch pressed, I was getting 13 volts at that connection. So that's what led me to believe that the motor was bad. Well, the motor's actually not bad, which is the thing that I've learned. I mentioned this problem that I've been having on several of the RV Facebook groups, and I kind of was reaching out for help because I didn't want to spend that $300 on an awning motor if it wasn't the motor. So the first thing that I learned is, because I told them I have 12 volts at the connection. Well, that's, number one, it's not accurate, and number two, when you're measuring voltage at a connection like this, there's a range that your voltage should be in, and 12 volts means your battery is basically dead, and in the range of 13 volts means you have a good connection and a good charge of your battery and enough voltage getting to where it should be. And in a situation like this, it should be 12 volts positive with the switch pressed one way and 12 volts negative with it pressed the other. And we had that. And so basically the only conclusion that I could draw is that the motor was bad. So I ordered the $300 motor. And I got that from Panther RV Products, so shout out to them because they're the only ones that had it. And if you happen to need a Dometic 9200 awning motor, I have one. So, if you can't find one, reach out. Might be willing to sell you one because now I have one that I don't need. Anyhow, so I bought the motor, it came in yesterday, I plugged it in, still did the same exact thing. It goes out, but it won't come back in. So as you can imagine, I was quite upset. And, I looked on Panther's website about a return policy, and it says no electronic parts are able to be returned. So I haven't even talked to them. I'm sure that I can't return it. And so I called the local place, East Coast RVs, and I said, listen, this is the problem I've got, and this is where I'm at with it. And I talked to one of their techs there, and they said, just because you've got voltage at that connection doesn't mean you have the right amperage. And so testing for voltage does you no good. You need to have the amperage to run that motor. So they sold me this switch, and that was only like 25 bucks. So I kind of wish that I'd have tried the switch first. The reason I got the motor so quickly was because I needed it for this trip we're leaving for tomorrow, and they said it would be arriving today, which was like the day before the trip, and I needed it. So, because you need your awning to work if you're out in the sun. And our next trip, actually, to the beach, we're going to be out in the wide open. So, anyhow, sent me the switch. I've got it hooked up now, and the awning works going both ways. So that's where it's at. Even if you're completely convinced that that motor is the problem, try your $25 switch first, I guess, or find a way to check for amperage. You know, if there is someone who is kind of an electrical guru that follows the channel, and, you know, you can try to explain this stuff to me a little better, and how do I even test for amperage, or let other people know so that they don't waste $300 on a motor that they don't need. You know, I would really appreciate that if you did that down in the comments. And I do want to thank everybody who responded on Facebook, on the Facebook groups. I put this out on every single Forest River Facebook group that I'm a member of. And I think that's a good idea. Put it out, if you're struggling with something like this, put it out on every group. You know, Travel Trailer Life, Forest River Campers, all that stuff. Because there's different people in every one of them groups. And everybody... and how Facebook's algorithm works and what people get shown and stuff. Like, they might even be a member of all them groups, but they only see it once. So you want to make sure you get it out to the people that might be able to help you. And so shout out to everybody who helped. If you're watching this, you know, I do appreciate it. So something, friends, that I think is very important for you to do, if you got some free time while you're out camping or you're sitting at home or whatever, it's a good idea to check out the owner's manuals to the different systems in your rig. And when you first buy your camper, it's extremely overwhelming because everything in here has got its own owner's manual. The fridge, the microwave, the stove, you know, your TV if you've got that. And a lot of these things, it's like, okay, well, you think you know how to work it. The awning's just a button, and you press it, and it should work, right? Well, you are actually supposed to lubricate all the joints of the awning, and I'm going to show you that here in a little bit, but I've never done that. And so when you don't lubricate that, it's harder on the motor. And there was a long list of things I was thinking was hard on the motor, and that's why the motor was the trouble. Like that loose connection out there, I was thinking, well, that's why it wasn't getting the amperage it needed, and so maybe that's why it burned out. Well, it wasn't the case, but that's a possibility, right? So it's a good idea, I think, to check your connections and check for fuses every which place. There's a fuse for the awning itself in the breaker box. It's 15 amp. It's a special fuse, actually. And I don't actually even have a spare for it because I didn't know that it was different. So I have to find one of those somewhere and make sure you get one. But you should always carry fuses. I've got this like multi-pack here. And, you know, I had kind of assumed that it had all your stuff in it, which it does have all of them except for the awning. Our awning's motor is on the side closest to the tongue, and then the other side is back here. And so something I never really thought about, but it's something that I have been thinking about since we've been struggling, is I think it's probably a smart idea to, when you tilt your awning so that the water runs whichever way you want it to run, I think it's a good idea to run it to the side away from your motor. That way, if there's some kind of problem with your wiring or your waterproofness of the motor or whatever, the water is going the opposite way and it's not just flooding the side of the motor. I also did read Dometic actually discontinued this awning because there was trouble with it. And so these were only out for about a year. I'm not exactly sure whether that's true or not, but if you do have to replace the motor on your awning and it's not a Dometic 9200, there's a good possibility that your system is spring-loaded, like a garage door, and so that assists the motor pulling it in. On these, there's not a spring, so it's the motor fully going each way, and I think that's why it goes out and not in, is because it takes more amperage to pull that thing in because the springs in the supports are pushing it out so that it stays taut. The motor has to fight that to get it to go in. So, friends, to grease all them joints, and you don't want to, if you have the screw-in like clips that help you tilt it, you don't want to put grease on those. If you have the nicer awnings that have like the hinge-looking things, I think you can grease the pivot points on those. But what I used is just some white lithium grease. I think that's something that you definitely want to keep in your RV with you wherever you go. I use it for a variety of things, the stabilizer jacks, and you know, this now. And I think you probably want to do this at least twice a year. So probably when you first take it out, and then 6 months. I think that if you keep up on some of these small regular maintenance things, it will make your life easier. One other thing that I do think is very important and could help you, and it's a cheap, easy thing to keep with you: dielectric grease. And any of your exterior electrical connections, it would be a good idea to put some of this on there. And I use it, obviously, now for the awning. This is kind of a one-time thing. Like, you don't have to do this all the time. But if you go around all your exterior electrical connections and you put this stuff on it, it keeps a tighter connection, especially if it's something that you're not unplugging and replugging back in regularly, like the awning. You know, that should be good to go forever now. But the 7-way pin that connects the trailer to the truck, I fill all them holes up with that. It keeps that connection secure. And I have not had problems with the travel trailer with that, but my dump trailer, I have. So I've done it on the travel trailer now as well, and I think that's definitely something worth doing. So those are 2 things. I mean, they're that's like 10 bucks. If you keep them in your RV and you keep up with that stuff, it will help you in the long run. So friends, like I said earlier in the video, it seems like there's always something wrong or going wrong with this RV. But it takes us to so many amazing places. And so, is it worth the headache? You know, is it worth spending the $300 on a part you don't need? I think it is, because it allows us to travel as a family, and it allows us to go do all this amazing stuff that would be difficult to do with kids and dogs and stuff otherwise. I mean, staying at a hotel with our circus is just not even possible. Plus, it gets you closer to your destination generally. I mean, you can almost find campgrounds everywhere. So I think learning to troubleshoot this stuff, though, on your own, and learning about the voltage of a battery, what it should be at the connections, and amperage, and how to diagnose these small problems on your own, I think it's a valuable resource. Your own mind is, anyway, in getting you through this stuff, so that you don't have to, because like if we had to take this to a dealership, it probably would have cost us $300 anyway, because we'd have been paying someone labor to figure this out. So for a $25 switch, you know, we still probably would have paid $300 for them to deal with it, number one. So I don't think I'm out any money, even though I made a mistake, and I could have fixed this for $25 instead of $325. It is rewarding when you finally do figure it out. Like, now if I'd still been trying to figure this out, I'd have been a little upset. But we got her done, and like I said, I learned some other things in the process. So having said that, I do believe at the end of the day that it was totally worth it to buy this RV, and I would say absolutely yes. This is our 3rd season with this thing. We've seen so many amazing places already, and all of it, everything that we've seen, is here on the eastern United States. And so I know RVers just continue to neglect the eastern USA, but I'll tell you what, there is stuff worth seeing here. And if you want to continue to follow our adventure, now would be a great time to subscribe. In next week's episode, we're taking you to Shenandoah National Park, which is the 2nd national park we've been to this year. And I made it a goal this year to hit some national parks, because I thought that was the thing that's missing from the channel. And just wait, because the best is yet to come. So Shenandoah next week, and then more to come as we continue through the season here. Please subscribe, check out our 2022 RV camping playlist, which I'll have a link to at the end of this video, and check us out on Instagram as well, and we'll see you next week.